Dr. Usman Gur Mohammed is the former MD CEO Transmission Company of Nigeria. He's also the former chairman of WAP and also the WAP Executive Board, and he's also the founder of Power Policy Dialogue Platform. He joins us live in the studio. It's good to have you in our studio this morning.
Thank you, TJSU and Imodu.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm happy to be here, and thank you, viewers.
Yeah, happy to have you. Now, let's take a look at the power sector and, challenges confronting the power sector. You were once at the helm of affairs, and Nigeria's power grid has collapsed only twice this year. That's a sharp contrast from the past. But what would you say would end this cycle entirely? Would you say that we need a complete overhaul of the grid system, or would you say that a proper maintenance is what we need at the moment?
Thank you very much. The government embarked on the power sector reform, I think, by the government of General Olusegun Obasanjo, I think in 2001 or 2002. And the objective of the power sector reform is to ensure that there's sustainable investment into the power sector, meaning government investment in the power sector has not been sustainable in the past. Therefore, government wanted private sector intervention into the power sector. That was what informed the power sector reform. Unfortunately, today we are about 13 or 14 years after, and yet government is still the biggest investor in the power sector. So that tells something. It means that the reform is not working or has not worked the way it's supposed to be. Now, as part of the reform, the Transmission Company of Nigeria was supposed to be the only sector among the three subsectors, meaning generation and distribution and transmission, that is held by government. And this has history. It's not only Nigeria. In all over the world, there are key countries that are similar to Nigeria. Their transmission are actually still held by government. If you look at South Africa, despite all the reform they did, or India, despite all the reform they did, or Egypt, even Cote d'Ivoire, countries that are similar to Nigeria, all these countries, their transmission are actually 100% owned by government. Even India, that has more than 350 gigawatts of power generated and transmitted, is still 100% owned by government. So the decision to keep transmission under government is not wrong. But, there has to be policy that will ensure that there is consistent and reliable investment into the transmission network, just like the other sector that are supposed to attract investment from private sector. Unfortunately, this is not happening. And we need to do everything we can to ensure that whatever policy we are going to do, we should do the policy that will ginger private sector investment into distribution and generation, and also government investment into transmission. I remember when I came in as MD Transmission Company of Nigeria in 2017, we came up with the Transmission Rehabilitation Expansion Program, where we attracted $1.661 billion. Now, this kind of investment is supposed to be coming sustainably and also properly managed. Just like you said in the last discussion on CBN, say we create regulation and we don't follow through. This is exactly what happened in the power sector. We didn't implement the transmission reform or the power sector reform properly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's look at this other aspect. You've given examples of countries where transmission is 100% handled by their various governments.
Yes.
And in Nigeria, it seemed not to be working.
Yes.
Now, they say we can't continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. We have the Nigerian Airways. Nigerian government could not manage it. We have the shipping line, several things that we could not manage. Is it not time for us to now take another look at this? If GenCos was privatized, this one was privatized, and transmission is still handled by government and it's not efficient, shouldn't we look at it? Is it out of space to say we'll take us another look either to privatize transmission and see how effective it's going to be?
Well,
yeah.
If you answer that, we're going to take this quick commercial break. You'll still get the chance to answer that after this break. Don't go anywhere. We still have more for you on the program. Stay with us. We'll be right back. I'd like to continue the question.
Thank you very much, Imodu. Yes, your suggestion has actually been made by several people. There are some people who are even talking about regional grid and regionalization of the grid and so forth. But as I told you, anywhere, any country where the public sector is not working efficiently, even the private sector will not work efficiently. If you look at the power sector, I mean, it's not only transmission that is failing. Even the one that is under the private sector, distribution, what investment has come into the distribution network? In fact, since the network was handed over to the private sector, no distribution company has built injection substation. So we are just connecting at 330, 415, direct connection, which make the grid unstable. So when you say the grid collapse, it's not only the function of transmission, it's a function of all the other parties that are connected to the grid. Because when you say the grid, is actually the transmission, distribution, and generation. Because whatever happens inside a generation company, inside generation, can also collapse the grid. If you don't know, it's not only transmission. So what I'm saying is that even in PPP, you look at the risk, and look at who is better party to take the risk. As of today, the better party to take the risk of transmission is government. If you give it to private sector now, for example, it will be very difficult for the private sector to get right of way. Even government is finding it difficult to get right of way, talk less of private sector. So once Nigerians know that this transmission line is owned by a private sector, the cost of right of way is going to be very massive and it will be very difficult to implement. Yet, government can actually work with private sector to expand transmission network, still under government, like it happened in other places. For example, when I was MD, we actually earmarked certain area that we are going to do PPP. And that is from Omotosho to Benin. We discovered that the significant generation that are taking place around Benin, the current corridor that we have, including the new one that is under construction, I'm talking of Benin North to Oshobo, it's not enough to carry the mantle of power to the point of consumption, which we believe Lagos. So we came up with a plan to do a PPP between Omotosho and Benin North, because we cannot go inside Benin City because it's already built up place. So the intention was that we are going to clear the right of way, because if you allow private sector to do the right of way, they can't do it. We're going to clear the right of way. And then we are going to look at incentive that we are going to put to make a private sector agree to build the line and recover its money in 10 years. You meter them, you can recover the money from the transmission charge. Yeah. So you tell us, so this is the kind of model that can work. But if you say you're going to sell transmission, it's not going to work. Because once we give it to private sector, they will not get right of way. As MD transmission, I remember there are several distribution companies. They couldn't get right of way. I have to go and get the right of way for them. I mean, get where they can build the injection substation and distribution line. But you know, transmission, for 330, you need to have 25 meters this way, 35 meters this way. It will be very, very difficult for a private sector.
Well, I like the fact that you introduced the idea of the PPP.